Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is Multifamily Chronicles, episode number 30. In introduction, I do want to thank our friends from Coastal Painting Contractors for supporting our show. If you do need quotes or you are in need of a large commercial interior or exterior painting projects, please check out the show notes on YouTube or on my LinkedIn post for contact information. With that being said, let's introduce our guest for today. Our guest today is David Lorenzen. David is Vice President of Real Estate at South Coast Partners. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you, Adrian. It's an honor to be here, truly.
David, please introduce yourself to the audience. Tell us a little bit about your professional, personal background, and about some great things that you do currently at South Coast Partners.
Okay. Well, I am a native Texan, pure blood Texan. My family is all made up of Aggies and Longhorns, but I decided to go to University of Houston. So I'm from Houston, still live in the Houston area, moved to Houston in 2003 from Waco, and graduated with a finance degree. When I graduated, it was 2007, 2008 with this finance degree. And my whole plan was to be a financial advisor. In 2004, 2005, 2006, it sounded like a really good idea, when the economy was going great, seemingly. And then the economy, as we know, kind of collapsed in 2008. And that whole plan of being the financial advisor went out the window. And so I decided to go to Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And, went through the whole trajectory, which, Enterprise, there's a lot of similarities between Enterprise and the rental industry with dealing with people and managing teams and the sales side of it. But at one time, in 2012, I was working at the airport, at Intercontinental Airport, and we worked every day. You worked Thanksgiving, you worked Christmas, you worked until 2 a.m. and then the next day you may be working at 6 a.m. And so that just took a toll on my family and myself, and I decided to join a recruiting firm in 2012. One of the people that I worked with Enterprise had gone over to a recruiting firm called Addison Group. They're a national recruiting firm, and I joined in the healthcare industry first. And so I started recruiting in the healthcare industry. We did back office business folks, like collections and coding and things like that. And at that time, in 2012, the unemployment rate was like 8%. It was a completely different time. And so it was not a candidate-driven market. It was an employee-driven market. And it was really interesting. However, I was also driving across Houston, which took, an hour and a half one way. And then South Coast Partners, I was living in the north side of Houston, which South Coast Partners is on the north side in Kingwood. And I decided to make this change and join real estate. And South Coast Partners, I really like the idea of real estate, number one. And number two, South Coast Partners was founded in 1993. So been around a long time. A lot of the people have been around a long time. And so I decided to make the change. And in multifamily specifically, South Coast Partners started out in commercial real estate, doing, working with office and retail and those types of folks. Switched into multifamily when it kind of started taking off in the 2000s. And so they had been doing multifamily since then, in the late 90s into the 2000s. And So in 2014, I started with South Coast Partners and have been working in the real estate industry since then. Really, we focus on executive type roles or direct hire type roles. We don't do any temporary staffing. So most of the time it's, the maintenance supervisors, the regional maintenance folks, regional construction project manager folks, property managers, regional property managers, asset management. We also work with real estate developers and doing a lot of those types of roles throughout the country. So we work with companies in Florida to California to Seattle to DC to Chicago, Arizona, all over the place. And I love it. I love what I do. And it's been a pleasure.
David, I'm just curious. How did you decide on picking recruiting as a career? You kind of told me the history and everything, but why recruiting specifically? What made you go to this, type of, it's a pretty significant shift from what you were preparing to become versus to what you have, embraced as a career.
Definitely. Well, I wanted to be a financial advisor initially to help people with their finances. My dad, he's a pediatrician, but he's a doctor, but he doesn't know anything about finances. And so I wanted to get in and be able to help people like that with their finances. And this way, recruiting is just helping people, help people get jobs, help companies and people hire better talent. So really, I get the opportunity to help people all day long. And that's one of the main things that I really enjoy. And then helping people, in the real estate industry, I don't know, the people are great. I love the people in the real estate industry, especially multifamily. Just hearts of gold, I think. And so helping people like that is kept me in it. I got into it to help people, and I continue to be into it to really help people.
Yeah, we're talking about 8 years later, right?
Yeah. It's 10 years now. I've been in recruiting since 2012. So
that's a good run. That's an excellent run. So David, everybody talks about the Great Resignation. I think it's just kind of a label for everything that's happening in the world today with the labor force. There's so many things that have happened or developed since COVID, really for the past couple of years, 2-3 years, significant shifts. And in fact, I've been, I'm a very close observer of what's happening in a multifamily field, and also particularly in a recruiting field, and I will say for maintenance specifically. And I'm seeing how the market shifts, like every 2 or 3 months. Candidates' behavior is different. Like their preferences change, not radically, but they do change some. So then I'm also knowing that industry in general, like corporate America, the corporate industry is kind of harder to keep up with the times. They're just kind of trying to catch up. So there's always a gap out there between the what the candidates really wish for in an offer and what actually employers have to offer at the time. With that being said, I'd like you to just kind of walk me through your experience. How do you see the Great Resignation with so many people like being out there, being willing to switch jobs, switch companies, leave their current job, go work somewhere else? Where do you see this going? How do you see solutions for it from an executive recruiter standpoint, from your experience with the clients, working with clients?
Yeah, well, that's a huge question.
It is.
And, I don't know, if I was president of the Great Resignation, what would I do? I don't know. I can tell you that that the job market, it's been a candidate-driven market now for a while. Unemployment was under 4% in 2018 and 2019 also, even before the COVID pandemic. So, employers were struggling to find great candidates, and there were plenty of open jobs even before the pandemic. And since the pandemic, obviously, many things have changed, and people and companies found out that they could work from home, and some of them do it successfully and efficiently. So that has changed a lot of the job duties and the job responsibilities of people. And, they have a hard time. A lot of people have a hard time if they were doing it from home successfully and efficiently. Why should they have to go back into the office and do it now? So had to answer that question. However, at the same time, people also found out that, some people don't like working from home. Not everybody does like working from home. They miss being at the office or being around people, and they want that environment. So that's changed a whole lot since the pandemic. But also now people are more attuned to what are the benefits with the company. What are the health benefits? What are the paid time off benefits? How does sick time, if you have COVID or if you have the flu or if you get a serious illness and you have to take a week off, how does that affect your PTO time for the year? So those are questions that we didn't really have to get answers to before. It was really just salary and bonuses and what are these things. But now, even when the salary is a little bit off, people aren't just going to make a change for $10,000 more now. They're going to say, what are the health benefits? Because sometimes those healthcare costs, they've increased too. So if you have to pay more every month in healthcare, or 5 times more in healthcare for your family every month, then that little bump in pay salary isn't as significant. And so those are the main things that have changed. But also, I'm really wondering if we're going to stay in a tight market, as far as unemployment rates. The jobs report just came out this morning, and it was 3.5% unemployment. It was 3.6. So it's really interesting times right now. I also think that COVID has changed a lot of the employment structure, in the fact that our population has gotten older. It's a fact. The median age today is 38 years old, or even older, and the median age in the 60s and 70s was 29, 30. And so we have an older population, and I think a lot of those people decided that they were just going to retire. And if they could move from a higher cost of living to a lower cost of living, which a lot of them did, I think a lot of them sold their homes and moved to Florida or moved to Arizona or moved to these high growth cities, North Carolina, Boise, Idaho. And if they were able to sell their home for a bigger, revenue in the last 2 or 3 years, and move to a lower cost of living, then they decided to do that and retire. So I think that has a lot to do with it, but there's many factors that have gone into this Great Resignation. And I think people they have a little bit more courage in changing jobs right now, because there are so many jobs and good jobs available. So I hope that answered your question. I don't know.
Well, it did answer. I really wanted to get your take on what's happening globally. So I think you painted a pretty good pictures, a very good picture of what's happening out there from what you're seeing.
But yeah, and let me say this: there are companies that are winning this employment situation. The companies that are being adaptable are the ones that are winning right now. They're getting those employees. The ones that give the better benefits, the ones that are adaptable in the fact that, like, some of these companies, like one of these big national companies, as soon as the gas prices started going up, they started giving all of their employees on site gas cards, monthly gas allowances that they weren't doing before. So the companies that are adapting and doing things like that, adding to their benefits and seeing their employees on site, especially struggling and seeing how they can help and add benefits to help them, those are the ones that are winning. And in this industry, it's a very small industry, the multifamily industry specifically. We're talking about that, and people talk. And when one person says, "Hey, my company is giving a gas card," and the other company is not doing that, they're like, "Well, do you have any job openings?" I want to go work for that company. So, I see that a lot.
You're bringing a great point here. Who's winning, right? Everybody wants to win. And unfortunately, what I've seen, for the most part, okay, there's exceptions because there's always there's trendsetters, right? But most are just followers. They follow trends, right? They're waiting for things to happen so they could catch up, and not necessarily they could catch up. They have no choice but to catch up so they could stay afloat. I'm not talking about competitive. The real players, though, they're making the moves ahead of everybody else, and they're setting the trend. They're forcing everybody to follow. But the problem is, by the time you follow and you catch up with a top dog, the top dog is already ahead of you again because they're making another move. So, why not being the person? Why not being the company that's the player out there that sets the trends, kind of observes the environment, and they adapt and they overcome, really, and they get the best talent eventually. Everybody else that's just following, they're gonna have to fight over the remaining talent. Do you disagree?
No, I completely agree. And it doesn't have to just be in pay either. There's other things that people could do for their employees. But yes, the ones that are adapting and doing those types of things, they are winning right now. The employment, competition, for lack of better words.
I want to take a specific situation, David, and run it by you, and tell me your experience with this. Let's say that you have a client. Client has a budget. They give you a range. Let's say that we're hiring for a director of real estate. I'm just making up a title, and our target, salary is 120 to 150K a year. Okay. You're doing your research, you're finding the great candidate, you're ready to, present this to the client. But the problem is they wouldn't go for, the top. They'll say that I want 160, 165, 170. So first of all, I wanted to say, would you still go to your client and say, I have someone, but it's outside of your pay range? Would you just completely not present this to the client? Or would you present it, and then what happens once you present it typically?
Right. No, that's a great question. And that happens every day.
Okay, excellent.
It happens all the time. And we do present, especially right now because the market is so tight. However, at the same time, you have to show reasons why it's worth going above their initial range, right? Why is this person worth paying 160 to 170? So if we're able to, they give bullet points of preferences and things that they would like in a candidate. And if this person checks all those boxes, and on top of that, they can add value in other ways, and then that's when those deals get done. But yes, absolutely, we present, and a lot of people are, if we can show that they're going to add the value, and give reasons why they should pay 170, then people will pay 170.
Let's you mentioned adding value, and this is exactly a very good point, because every business is looking at their employees. How are they gonna bring me value, right? You have an excellent, talented person out there that you're trying to market to your clients, and the person is a industry personality, influencer, a very well-known person in the industry, right? this type of person could actually attract talent by them working in a certain company, in a place. Actually, they could attract other talented people because people want to work with people that they like. So, obviously they're in a position of influencer. They are liked. That's the assumption. Of course, they're liked by many others. And then would you find any value into presenting a client with a candidate that's actually a very well-known person in the industry, an influencer, I should say, and say, like, you're not just getting this person for the job, for the work that they do, but they're very active on LinkedIn. They have a podcast, or they're guests on many podcasts all the time. They're a public speaker. So things that they're doing outside of just their regular job duties. But those are things that actually bring attention to them, to their as an individual, and by default, they bring some attraction to the company they work for. So do you find any value in that? And have you done that type of a presentation to a client before? Have you presented? Did you have a chance to work with candidates that have this type of profile?
Definitely. Well, it's really similar to what's been around for a long time in associations. Apartment associations. A lot of people are involved in apartment associations, the National Apartment Association, and then there's Texas Association in Texas, and then Houston Apartment Association, and people have been involved in those associations for a long time, doing chair work and training and CAMTs and CAMs and all of that. And so when we are presenting a person that has that experience in those associations, we add that and discuss that and how that can benefit a company in terms of recruiting and influence. And so now, if you want to add this social media, this is a whole new thing. This is a whole new game, and a lot of people are not doing it, honestly, like yourself. So we definitely would, especially if it's industry specific. Like your show, for instance, is industry specific, and so people from all across the nation are involved in this, like myself and yourself. And so we would put that, yes, absolutely, discuss it and how it could benefit the company overall. And you know what? I mean, you're a maintenance professional, and how you could influence the maintenance teams and the maintenance, staff. So it really needs to be specific in how you can add value. But yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's great to know. I think that there's an area right there that hasn't been exploited at its full potential from the employer standpoint, because social media is big, and the platforms, especially LinkedIn, are extremely powerful. They have created they have built people have built their brands on these platforms, so between social media, some podcasts, and other, public speaking engagements, people could become very, very well known, and they could influence things. As I said, they could actually drive people towards a certain, employer eventually.
Definitely. And we were talking about the people that are winning at the recruiting, and branding has a lot to do with that. And the influencers add value to your brand, and more reputation and reach. If somebody looking for a job has never heard of your company, and doesn't know anything about your company, and they don't know anybody that works at the company, they're less likely to go to the interview, number one, and take the job. So people want to work with people that they know a lot of the times. And, we work on referrals a lot. And so if you have an influencer that's well known, it's really an easy introduction into a company.
Excellent. So, David, of all the clients, of all the candidates, that you're working with, what are the reasons? Because, obviously you're asking them, hey, you're trying to make a move, or you're out on the market, you're, you're looking for different, you're considering at least different opportunities. What are your main reasons? So what do you hear for main reasons for people to put themselves in a market, in a job market out there, and look for different, for better opportunities? What are the top reasons for candidates to look?
Well, I think right now, especially, most people are looking for the next step, the next career growth opportunity. If they're an assistant manager, they want to be a manager. And if you're a multi-site maintenance manager, you want to be a regional maintenance manager. If you're a maintenance tech, you want to be the maintenance supervisor. And so a lot of people are looking for that next step, but also, people are looking for better pay, better benefits, better work environments. Those are the main reasons, but really it's the next step in their career that people are looking for, I think.
Got it. The next best thing. So I'm sure that you're dealing with this, and I wanted to see how often are you seeing the situation, and how do you typically manage a situation like this? So candidate comes to you, you decided they're a great candidate to present to the client. You present it to the client. Client is interested. Client makes an offer. Candidate is very interested. They accept, and then later on, you're learning that their current employer made a counter offer, which they're intending to accept. How do you typically manage a situation like this, and how often does it happen that your candidates get a counter offer, and how often they decide to actually stay versus taking the opportunity they apply for?
No, hey, that's a great question. It's a really good question, because it was not that common before COVID, and we were going back to the Great Resignation, but that has become a lot more common because companies realize that the labor market is tight, and they need to keep their people as much as possible, because it's a lot more costly to go and find a new person than to keep the one that you have, especially if they're a top producer or a top person in your company or at that role. And so it has increased tremendously over the last 2 years. We've seen a lot. And traditionally, we would suggest people don't take the counteroffer because, what's the reasons that you wanted to make the change in the first place? And if they really valued you, then why didn't they pay you earlier and all those things? But things have changed. Things have really changed. And so, number one, we have that conversation before we even get to that point. It's in one of the first couple of conversations. We have to figure out exactly why this person is looking to make a change, right? What are the real reasons? If the real reason is only they want 5,000 more a year, or they want 10,000 more a year, then that person is going to take a counter offer right now, probably, and stay at their current company. That's the only reason. If they're happy, everything's great, I would just like a little bit more money, well, then that company can just go in there and give them a little bit more money. Then they don't really need to make a change. So really have to drill down into the reasons that somebody is looking to make a change. And if the reasons are strong enough, then the counteroffer won't even matter. And that's, kind of the situation where we want to get to, because we don't try, we're dealing with people here, and people they change their minds a lot. And so we don't try to sway either way. If somebody wants to make a change, great. If they don't, then we let them, But traditionally, if somebody accepted the counteroffer, typically 6 months later, they're calling and saying, I made a mistake. I want to make a change now. I shouldn't have accepted that counteroffer. And, but that's not happening now, honestly. If the reason was only to get a little bit more money. So it's kind of the situation. I hope I answered that question.
Yes. So do you see now more people accepting the counter offers than, let's say, 3 years ago? Or do you see less people accepting counter offers?
Well, we did a year ago. But like I said, we kind of changed our process to figure out if somebody's going to take a counter offer. And that's kind of slowed down a little bit because we really try to figure out why a person is looking to make a change. And if it's only that little bit more money, then we don't, we don't even move forward in the process, honestly. We suggest them go just talk to their employer. If you only want to come, just go talk to them, and maybe they'll give you a little bit more money now, if you can add value. And so we kind of just, or I suggest them just do that, if that's the only reason.
So, David, there are over 2 jobs available for every able-bodied person in this country. For you as an executive recruiter, is it harder to fulfill job orders from your clients? Is it easier? Is it the same as before? How do you find it?
It's different. It was hard before when unemployment was 8%. But it's just shifted. It was an employer-driven market in 2012, 2013, 2014, and now it's a candidate-driven market. And so it's just changed. But at the same time, it's very difficult right now, especially in a lot of these roles, to find the right people with the experience that people are looking for. And it's really difficult. And so we do a lot of work. I mean, that's why people need us. That's why, if they were easy, then they wouldn't need me. But I can tell you, I mean, it's definitely more challenging. And but I can say that there are companies that are doing really well. And we're having a lot of success right now. But it's the ones that are adapting that are really winning. And I don't know, I don't have a lot of answers except that, things are going to need to change, and we're going to have to adapt because it might be a tight market. It's been a tight market for the last 4 years. So, yeah.
David, I'm curious about feedback from your candidates you're working with. Of course, someone decides to leave a company, they will have things that are affecting them in a negative way that, some of them they're sharing with you. So what would you say are the top complaints from your candidates about their current employer?
I think, well, the number one complaint I would say is just the overall maybe communication, and support, I guess. A lot of, people don't, not everybody, but the ones that are, really looking, they don't feel supported, or there's no room for growth, or there's no growth plan outlined for them. They're not having those conversations, and so they're looking to make a change to somebody that can create a plan for them. And so I would say, maybe just the support overall is one of the main complaints, I guess.
David, I want to ask you a type of a different question than all the questions that I asked before, kind of different topic. What is the craziest, the wildest situation that you found yourself into as a recruiter working with both candidates and clients? Tell us about the most, the weirdest thing, the wildest thing that happened to you while working with your clients and candidates.
Well, I can tell you in the multifamily recruiting, I mean, there hasn't been a whole lot, honestly. There was a lot more in the enterprise rental car industry. People would leave some crazy things in their cars, which I'm sure y'all find crazy things in the apartments when people leave.
Oh, absolutely. There's websites specialized in posting pictures like that.
Yeah.
or Facebook groups. Yeah.
Yeah. People are interesting. But really, it's really funny sometimes the interviews. People will call back and say, hey, did you know the guy had his, the tags on his clothes still in the interview? Or, somebody came in and they were wearing sandals to the interview, or just kind of things like that you would think are pretty, you don't have to explain those things, but sometimes I guess you do. But those are the interviews process is interesting sometimes. I'm sure you've dealt with that, interviewing people.
I've dealt with I had my share for sure. Next question, David, I have for you is, or candidates in general, it seems like it's a general level of insatisfaction with recruiters in general. And it could be the corporate recruiters, it could be the executive recruiter, but with the recruiting side of things in general, I'm sure that sometimes you get feedback from candidates. I'm curious, like where do the candidates see that they're the biggest areas of improvement for recruiters in general? If you want to share a few thoughts.
I think the number one thing would be communication and feedback. People that spend a lot of time putting a resume together, going to interviews, spending time, researching a company, and really considering an opportunity, and then they go to the interview, meet people, think it went really well, and then they never hear anything. And sometimes as an executive recruiter, we never hear anything either. And so we try to work with companies that are going to give really good feedback, because number one, we're able to do our job better when we get better feedback, because it helps us find the right person. Like if this person wasn't a good fit, why weren't they a good fit? That way we can find the right person for you. What happened in the interview, what's going on. And when you don't hear anything, then it's really difficult. And it looks bad for the company too, because the person that went and interviewed, like we said, the industry is really small. And so if somebody did all that work and didn't hear anything, they're going to go tell their friends. If somebody else says, oh, I'm interviewing with such and such company, and that person just went through that process, and they'll say, well, this is what happened with me, and I think a lot of people don't understand or realize that. But I think feedback is the number one thing from the recruiting perspective, that could be better, could improve.
David, great conversation, great insights. I do appreciate you coming on. We're approaching wrapping up this episode, and I do want to ask you in closing, were there any thoughts or any questions that you wish I would have asked, or any topics you're passionate about that you wish I would have covered and I didn't?
Yeah, I mean, let me just say that for candidates, for maintenance folks, either on-site or property management folks in the real estate industry, since we're really multifamily specific, but when you're putting a resume together, and number one, I tell maintenance techs to get on LinkedIn, get on social media, get seen, because nobody can recruit you if we can't connect with you. So that's, I would tell them number one, if I had a
if we don't know you exist, if you're not on social media, for us you don't exist, correct?
Yeah, I mean, how am I gonna call you, or how am I gonna message you?
Exactly.
And number two, when you're putting a resume together, you're putting a presentation together, make sure that you're showing all of your experience and the properties that you've worked with. How many units was it? Where was it located? Who did you work with? Did you do any renovations? How did you improve NOI? How did you improve occupancy? How did you improve delinquency? For every role, put that on there. It's not just enough to say, I was a property manager at such and such company from this time, and that's it. That doesn't provide a lot of value. And I think, in multifamily, we provide a lot of value. The on-site teams provide a lot of value that's not presented on the resume. And I think that could do a lot better job of presenting that value, that you do have the experience that you do have on the resume.
Yeah, that's great advice. Be specific with your accomplishments. Just because you had a title, it doesn't mean that you are great at like holding that title, at doing whatever the title requires. Be specific. Hey, this is what I've done. It's nothing wrong. It's actually very, very helpful to be the person.
I mean, a maintenance tech in a 500 unit community has a different job than a maintenance tech at a 25 unit community. There's different things that go on.
And, absolutely. David, for all of us, for everybody in the audience that wants to get in touch with you, they might looking for opportunity. They might be on a market, and they could have a great recruiting firm on their side. How can anyone in the audience get a hold of you? What's the best way to contact you?
Well, I'm really active I'm on LinkedIn all the time. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect there. We have a website, southcoastpartners.com. So you can go to the website and give us a call. Happy to talk. Never hurts to have a conversation. What I say.
I just wanna David, I want to thank you for your time, for your very valuable insight. In closing, my virtual door is always open here. If you want to come back later down the road and do another episode, another conversation, these are the type of conversations that we need more of in the multifamily space. So thank you very much for accepting the invitation, for taking the time to be here with me. I'm very appreciative of that. And I hope to get you back here soon for another conversation.
Thank you, Adrian. I appreciate everything you're doing for the multifamily industry. So keep going. Thanks for being here.
I also want to thank again our friends from Coastal Painting Contractors for supporting the show. If anyone in the audience is in any need of major projects, interior or exterior painting for their properties, you will find the contact information for our friends in the show notes on YouTube and also on my LinkedIn postings. This is Adrian Danila. I'm your host for Multifamily Chronicles. This is episode number 30. Thank you very much for watching us, and I hope to see you back here soon. Have a great day.